we talk about Black Monday. People don't understand what Black Monday is, or people that don't understand what Black Monday is. It's the Monday after the final week of the NFL. And they call it Black Monday because usually that's when coaches that were close to getting fired usually gets fired. We've seen some coaches already get fired. Cliff Kingsbury, the coach or the former coach now of the Arizona Cardinals, he got fired. We kind of knew that was coming. We kind of knew that was coming with the fact of how badly they regressed from year after year, and this is yet another a year. This is yet another year where Arizona just drastically fell off the second half of the season. We've heard about tensions between Cliff Kingsbury and Kyler Murray, Cliff Kingsbury and management. So you knew that was going. Even though, and I hate to call people's job, I don't like people fired, but even though I feel Ron Rivera should be out there, he's somehow keeping afloat. But Scott Turner, thank God, from the Washington Commanders, the offensive coordinator for the Washington Commanders, was fired. Bada bing, bada boom. I mean, you saw Washington's offense, the predictable offense. You saw just how bad the offense has been. I mean, if you've watched Washington for years, you know since Scott Foster has been there, the offense has been terrible. But the one that I really want to focus on and talk about is Lovie Smith. Lovie Smith is yet another casualty of the Houston Texans' mismanagement. This is 4 coaches in 4 years. That's a very illustrious feat for an organization to have 4 coaches in 4 years. 4 different coaches in 4 years. Let me first start by saying, and you can go back and check when I talked about this, when David Culley was fired. I said I don't believe David Culley deserved to be fired. When you look at the Texans team, you have to look at the material that the material you have to paint this canvas. And the Texans have terrible material. Terrible paint brushes, terrible, they're just terrible. So it was hard I'm almost sure Nick Saban, I'm almost sure Bill Belichick, or I'm almost sure most people could not save this Houston Texans team. It's not just because of the team and the players, but the management's bad too. There's no way the management can be good to have 4 coaches in 4 years. But I said when David Culley got fired, 1, he didn't deserve to be fired. 2, I understand why he got fired. But with me understanding why he got fired doesn't mean that I agree with it. David Culley got fired because the Texans organization thought if they hired a black coach, i.e. David Culley, that would get Deshaun Watson to stay. And as we saw, that did not happen. So because of that, they were like, well, if Deshaun Watson's not here, there's no need for David Culley, even though David Culley did the absolute best. I know it was 4 wins, but David Culley did the absolute best he could do with that roster. Outside of Brandon Cooks and Davis Mills, which a lot of people don't even know is a quarterback, can you name anybody on this team? No. So, like I said, I don't believe David Culley should have got fired. And when that happened, I made a proclamation. I said, African American coaches should not accept or want the Texans job. I said this because there is a track record of the Houston Texans not really understanding the importance of a black coach, not really respecting black coaches, and not really respecting the head coaching position as a whole. That's one of the biggest reasons. Again, I understand all the off-field stuff that Deshaun Watson had, but that's one of the biggest reasons why Deshaun Watson wanted to leave Houston, because he understood the organization. This is a bad organization. So when David Culley got fired, I said, "Yo, black coaches should not want this job." I understand how difficult it is for black coaches to get a head coaching job in the NFL. I get it. I mean, you see DeMeco Ryans, you see Eric Bieniemy, you see Brian Flores. Brian Flores was a successful head coach and got fired. Successful head coach. So I understand the difficulties that it is being African American and trying to be a head coach in the National Football League, especially when the National Football League is damn near 90% African American. But I said, yo, African Americans should not want this job and should not accept this job, because the Houston Texans haven't shown a track record of doing the right thing for African Americans, especially at the head coaching position. Lo and behold, Lovie Smith got the job. I will first say, let's not forget, the only reason Lovie Smith got the job is because the league and social media was pressuring the Houston Texans to get anybody else. Because remember, the Houston Texans went Josh McCown. And Josh McCown was like an assistant coach for a high school team or something. No head coaching in the college realm, no head coaching in the NFL realm, no coordinator position in college, nothing. And the Houston Texans were ready and prepared and wanted to give Josh McCown a job as the head coach over people like Lovie Smith, DeMeco Ryans, Eric Bieniemy, Leslie Frazier, Todd Bowles. Josh McCown was about to get that job. And because of the heat from the league and because of heat from social media, they did a quick pivot and went for Lovie Smith. So I don't think Lovie Smith should have ever been the head coach of this. Not saying that Lovie Smith is not a good coach, not saying that he didn't deserve it, but you were the clear second option. And honestly, you really weren't even the second option. You were the option that, because they just couldn't pick the first. They were just like, but we really want to. No, you can't have him. All right, we'll just do Lovie Smith. Lovie Smith was the make face pick. We understand we messed up. You know when a husband messes up, or a spouse, whether a husband or wife, mess up, and then they start kind of going above and beyond. They start getting flowers all the time. They start just going above and beyond. Lovie Smith was the flowers. Lovie Smith was, I understand that we messed up. And the only reason why we feel we messed up is because people said that we did. But we understand. Let's just scoot this Josh McCown stuff to the side. We have a black coach. One thing that's so elusive in the NFL, we have a black coach. Lovie Smith was the flowers. But I said from Jump Street, I don't think black people should want this job. And now we sit here today, and Lovie Smith was fired after 1 year. And I respect, shouts out to Lovie Smith, going out the way an African American should go out, on top. We knew the Houston Texans are not good. And the Houston Texans were fighting for that number one spot or number one seed. The number one overall pick can change your franchise, like can flip it in. Not saying you have to draft somebody number one, but there's so much you can get someone. You can get a quarterback for the number one pick. You can draft someone number one. You can get a bunch of return for the number one. The number one overall pick can change the trajectory of a franchise overnight. But Lovie Smith ain't care nothing about that. He had to know before that game. Lovie Smith probably knew. In fact, I'm sure Lovie Smith knew because the media pretty much knew. Lovie Smith knew before the game that this was his last game as a Houston Texans head coach. So if this is my last game, why would I do something to help you when I'm already getting unjustly fired? Because again, it also goes back to expectations and unrealistic expectations. What do you think you're supposed to do with this roster? So Lovie Smith was like, yo, if I'm going to go out on top, bro. I'm going to beat the Colts. Not only am I going to beat the Colts, I'm going to go out with a win. I'm also going to go out, and you guys are not going to, because you won too much and another team lost too much, you are going, now the Chicago Bears, I think, have the number one overall pick. Ultimate petty, which I respect. I respect it in some instances because it's warranted, man. Lovie Smith, black people should not want the head coaching position in Houston. Houston has not shown the ability to operate as a good franchise. Think about this franchise. Think about the history of the Houston Texans, man. They've had Andre Johnson. They've had J.J. Watt. They've had Deshaun Watson. What do they have to show for any of that? Again, I get it. I understand completely. I understand why a black coach or anybody of African American descent or a black person would take this job, because jobs in this industry at that position are very scarce. Even though they shouldn't be, they're very scarce. But take it from Lovie Smith. Look at Lovie Smith. Look at David Culley. Two very deserving head coaches. And I'm not saying deserving as in deserving to just be a head coach, but deserving a year two that didn't get that opportunity. I'm not saying they didn't get the opportunity because they're black. I'm saying they didn't get the opportunity because the organization does not know how to function as a good organization. So now Lovie Smith is unemployed again. I don't know where the hell David Culley at. Two people that did a hell of a, yes, Lovie Smith was what, two something and one. But again, look at that roster. Look at that roster, and what do you expect? I will say this, and I understand that's just not really a stat or whatever, but this team, the Houston Texans, played hard. The Houston Texans, there was a bunch of games where they should have got destroyed that they almost won. I know that doesn't count for anything, but it's not like they didn't play for Lovie Smith. Like they liked play. It's kind of like the Dan Campbell effect for the Lions. You know, the Houston Texans, they didn't look unprepared. They just were the lesser team every time they played, except twice or 3 times technically. So yeah, man. The last thing I'm gonna say on this: African Americans should not accept the Houston Texans job. Oh man, you stayed to the end of the video. I appreciate you. If you like what you saw, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you'll never miss any content from your boy. You can also go back and watch past episodes, past clips, and don't forget that the Unpopular Podcast new episodes drop every Wednesday and Saturday. Appreciate you.